Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Infinitum Chapter 2 Legacy on October 29th on Napalm Records. This album has 12 tracks, 44 minutes in length, and this is the band's second full-length studio album. They are a Swiss symphonic metal band. Now for this record, I really feel like they took everything that they constructed in the debut album and added a few new elements to make it a much stronger release. We see that, for example, with the structure. This is a much better connected album from beginning all the way to the end. It feels more balanced, it feels more cohesive, it feels more together. This adds to the playability. It makes the album super engaging, super fluid, and super dynamic all at the same time. A record that, while not being a roller coaster ride, it definitely has peaks and valleys, and it changes the eyesight of the listener and the perception that the listener has of this record with every single song. You don't get two tracks back to back that have similar elements within them. So this is an album that's always morphing, that's always changing, always evolving, making the overall experience of listening to this album one that's very pleasurable. Once you get into the soundscape, once again, they took everything that was really well done with Chapter 1 and they added a few new elements in order to make this album more robust. And I feel like that's perhaps the main description of the soundscape of this album. Robust. It has big sound, not just cinematic because that's also there, but it has more power. This is a more powerly driven record all around. There's still songs that have a methodic nature to them, perhaps a little bit of a dark embrace in terms of the somber atmosphere that they create, but they added a lot more power elements within tracks and in the overall design of the record to make this an album that has a little bit more of a larger motor that really pushes you forward, song in and song out. Like I said, even in the ones that are more methodic, you still feel like there is a drive there, sometimes more of an emotional drive in those songs as compared to the more musical drive in others. Now, what's driving the experience? I really feel like there are two elements driving this record, while one of them is concentrating a little bit more on the atmosphere. That one is the symphonic elements. The symphonic elements on this record don't have this drive that perhaps we saw a little bit more of that in the previous album. On this record, I felt like they were there more to create an ambiance, to create a blanket that covers every single song, that it gives them a sense of continuity, gives them a sense of balance, cohesiveness, makes the album feel united as one, and allows these tracks to have this very cinematic underlining to them that really connects them well, regardless of how different they are musically and even vocally. Now, on the other side, the motor, the drive of this record, what is igniting that power? I really feel like it's the drums and specifically the guitars. The drums were really well thought out for this album. They created a very incredible bass line. They created a foundation. Perhaps the roadmap that's put forward for the listener from beginning to end is really painted in front of you with the sound of the drums. They also felt a little bit warmer on this record. They felt a little bit more soulful. They had the soul of this album present within them, and that helps the overall design. It helps create shapes. It helps the songs feel a little bit more together, and it gives them a little bit of a heartbeat, sung in and sung out. On the other side, you have the guitars. The guitars had a little bit more grit, a little bit more chunkiness, a little bit more power, sometimes really heavy, in order to create that force that drives these songs, injecting some power metal experience into their symphonic sound, making the album have that robust appearance as far as soundscape is concerned, making it feel really large at times. Obviously, you have Melissa's vocals on top of everything else, and her performance on this record was super controlled. I really felt that she didn't take any road that she hadn't traveled in before. Even the ones that perhaps she wasn't too familiar with, she delivered with absolute perfection, sung in and sung out. She has an incredible voice, and I felt that the sound that they created for this album, that mixture of symphonic metal with power metal, really works well for her. It's really her home, if you will. She felt very comfortable in it. She still brought some harsh vocals. They were sprinkled out throughout the record. I almost felt like we didn't need them. But every time they came in, they added some flavor. They added some flair. They made the songs feel a little bit more outside the box compared to everything else that we're getting, because this overall is a very melodic driven album. So her voice adds to that melody. So having some harsh vocals here and there does change the perception that the listener have. It does change a little bit of the aroma of the album. But I really like the fact that it was really sporadic, and there's not one single song on this album that lives off of it. They're there to add flavor, they're there to add an element to the overall soundscape, but they're not really there to be the focal point of the attention on any given track. For that, you have her incredible clean vocals that really allow you to navigate through this record. At times I felt like she was the narrator, just talking to you, talking to the listener, telling you a story and really helping you understand exactly where the song starts and where the song is trying to tell you from a storytelling perspective. Obviously then that permeates to the entire record, making the album one that's super engaging from that perspective. Her voice becomes the calling card. Everything else is behind it in order to really elevate it and give it that spotlight that it needs, and she carries this album with ease and incredible grace through and through. Overall, this is much better than their previous album. Their debut record was super strong, and you almost wonder how could have they worked towards something that would surpass that incredible debut record. Well, they've done it. And they've done it by keeping the DNA of the band intact, by keeping a lot of the elements that made that record successful, moving them forward, and then just tweaking a few pieces here and there. Not a lot, so that it doesn't change the perception that the listener has of the band coming in. It stays the same, but this addition of extra power, this addition of extra volume really makes this album more bombastic and therefore more memorable all around. The question is, what are they going to do for the next record? Because they keep elevating the bar with every single album. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Reinvented. This is the opening track on the album, and it brings a lot of the elements that you're going to see throughout the record. It brings a lot of melody. That melody brings a lot of brightness. The song has great movement. The symphonic elements add the atmosphere to the track. They work as very thin layers mixed in between the drums, the bass, and the guitars. These are all elements that you're going to see throughout the rest of the album. You're going to have some clean vocals. You're going to have some sporadic, harsh vocals throughout. There's some backing vocals, some layer to the vocal tracks. All of these things, once again, you're going to experience them throughout the entire record. So this is a song that really opens up the album well, because it doesn't have a lot of power, it doesn't have a lot of drive, but it has a lot of what we saw in the debut album. So this song really works almost as a, not only a synopsis of what they've done before, but a little bit of a preview to what's coming next. I love this as the opening track. Next you have Breed. This song has a very interesting atmosphere, feels very Victorian, and the piano that opens the song and that stays throughout the track adds to that Victorian atmosphere. It's also a track that has a lot of darkness built in the story that it tells, in the lyrics, but the melody that it's put forward is one of brightness, is one of hope. So it's a song that at times feels a little bit naive. It feels naive because it sounds one way, but the message that it's telling is a completely different message. It's a message, like I said, filled with darkness, somberness, but the music around it and even the vocal delivery has a sense of hope and light at the end of the tunnel. This duality of effects works really well for this track, and it stays true from beginning all the way to the end. And you always try to walk between these two worlds, this world of incredible light and brightness in the sound and even in the vocal performance, and then the darkness that's hidden all the way underneath it. Magnificent track. Last but not least, my favorite song of the album, Into the Night. This is symphonic power metal at its best. This song is super bombastic from the start all the way to the finish. The chorus is perhaps even a little bit more bombastic, but not necessarily musically, more vocally. Melissa takes it and turns it all the way to 11 from the verses into the chorus, allowing the chorus to be super catchy, super hooky, having more volume, more presence, feeling like it's jumping into the forefront, and then going back into that normal that we saw in the verses, allowing it to be still very fast forward moving, but still feel a little bit more controlled. And that is the dynamic that exists. A song that musically stays not flat, but it stays moving at a very nice click. And then vocally, this is where you're gonna get your ebbs and flows between verses and chorus to allow this track to have the robust nature that it has. It also has some harsh vocals in the verses as it leads into the clean vocals of the verses and then the clean vocals of the chorus. There's a portion of harsh vocals, perhaps the largest portion of harsh vocals in the entire album is in this song, and it works really well, and she even adds a bleh to it. I couldn't believe it. This song has everything. She added everything on her repertoire onto this track, and it works perfectly across all the different elements. Harsh vocals, clean vocals, the merger of the two, the sequence that they have, the sound, the power, the drive, that symphonic power metal at its best. This is it. Ad Infinitum Chapter 2 Legacy, out October 29th on Napalm Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.